So you're playing Genshin, you do a 10 pull, and while you don't get a 5-star, you do get 4-star Flowing Purity. I need to see if my wish system is broken. Now in this video, we are going to look at this Fontaine craftable weapon and talk about some different characters that it can be good for and kind of how it works. But to start it off, we are going to talk about how to get this weapon. Like I said, this is the Fontaine craftable weapon, and you have to get the recipe for it before you can have any blacksmith make it. And the way that you get this recipe is that if you go to Fontaine, to this teleport point, and you walk down this staircase, you're going to end up at Estelle or Estella. If you talk to her, then if you go to the buy option, then you can get the blueprints for all of the Fontaine craftable weapons. All you got to do is give her a couple of items, these oranges, these flowers, and these rocks, which can be found throughout Fontaine. This is how you get the recipe for any blacksmith to make this weapon. Now, once you have these items and you get somebody to make it, of course, you can also make refinements for this weapon, which this weapon is going to greatly appreciate the refinements. So now let's talk about the star of this video, the weapon itself, Flowing Purity. This is going to have an attack percent main stack, which is going to be very, very good for characters that want the attack. But then its passive, it is going to give you an elemental damage bonus when you use your skill. It's also going to put a bond of life onto your character for a certain amount of their HP. Whenever you clear the bond of life through healing, then it is going to give you even more elemental damage bonus based on the amount of HP cleared from the bond of life through getting the bond of life onto. Now, for our model to show this weapon, how it works, we are of course going to be using Ningguang. As you can see here, Ningi has 18% geo damage bonus right now. If we use her skill, then you're going to notice that her HP bar is going to have a bond of life, that little red mark on it. We are then going to use Benny's healing to clear that bond of life. And now you can see that her geo damage bonus has gone up to 32.6%. And I didn't walk through her curtain, which gives her even more geo bonus. Once we walk through the curtain, now it is 44.6%. So as you can see, we went from 18 to 44. So that is a very large increase in geo damage bonus. So now we're going to kind of show this in a domain, how kind of using this weapon with the healing can work in this particular rotation. Now, first, let's run through this entire team that we're going to be using and kind of talk about why this particular team and how it works. So first off, of course, we have the always wonderful, my favorite character, Chiori. She is level 90. She does have her signature weapon, Araku. She is running 4-piece husk. She is C0 and she is triple crowned. Next, of course, we do have Ningi, who is going to be using Flowing Purity as the weapon, Marshmallow Hunter as the artifact set. She is C6 and her talents need some work. Next, we have Farina, who is going to be running the Fontaine fishing weapon. She's going to be running 4-piece golden troop. She is double crown. And then last but not least, we have Benny, who is going to be running Absolution, which is great for him. He's going to be running 4-piece noblesse. He is C6, and then he does have a crowned burst. Now, the reason that I went through all of these different characters in this team is to talk about the team as well as the weapon and how it works. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we are going to go into this domain. We are going to use Ningi's skill to get up the bond of life on her character. We're then going to go to Farina. We're going to summon her minions and start her burst. Then, of course, we are going to go over to Benny, drop his burst down to start the healing. If we go to Chiori and use her skill, we are going to summon 2 tomatoes because Ningguang's skill is considered a geo construct, so that will summon the second tomato. Then we're going to go back into Ningi. We're going to walk through her curtain to get the extra geo bonus, also clearing the bond of life from Benny's healing. And then we're going to go to town. Ningi is going to be able to then just use her burst, break her skill, put it right back up, and then just use her charged attack because of her C6. And as you can see, we're going to do a ton of damage between Farina's minions, both tomatoes, and Ningi, doing a ton of damage in here, right? This is going to be a very, very good free-to-play option for Ningi because her damage does scale with her attack. We just have to make sure that we're running a healer, in this case, Benny, to do the healing to clear the bond of life. If you were to want to run like an on-field C6 Ningguang, then this team is actually going to be very, very good. We're going to have a very good amount of team damage, and Ningguang is going to be contributing to that heavily. Chiori can use Bennett's buff, and Ningi can use Bennett's buff, and the Geo resonance with having 2 different Geo characters is going to make the enemy weaker to Geo. This is going to be a very, very solid team if you were to try to run Ningi, an on-field Ningi, dealing damage with her. Now, some other characters that can make use of this is going to be somebody like Yae Miko. Yae Miko is going to like EM or attack, kind of depending on the team that you put her in. And right now we're going to throw her in an overloaded team. I had never ran this team with Yae Miko before going in here. And they could definitely do better, but I was like, why not? So we had Gaming, we have Yae Miko, we have Chevy, we have Benny. Now, in Chevy teams, you can only have Pyro and Electro characters. Yae Miko is going to be doing a lot of her stuff off field. Honestly, if she had 4-piece Golden Streak on her, which she does not have in this team, I think her split was like 80/110, right? It wasn't super great, but she's still able to hit a decent amount of damage. And this rotation was a little bit different, a little bit harder to figure out this rotation, right? Because we have to cause an overloaded reaction before we can use Chevy's hold skill. So the best thing to do would just be normal attack with the Yae Miko, go into Chevy, use her burst to cause the overloaded, then use Chevy's hold skill, go back to Yae Miko, and as you're setting up her turrets, Chevy's healing is going to clear the Bond of Life, giving the elemental damage bonus to Yae Miko. Then of course you can go to Benny, drop his burst, then go to Gaming, and have Gaming as your on-field damage dealer using his burst with the combination of the attack buffs from Benny and Chevy, and overloaded reactions make the enemies weaker to the two elements in this team. This one was a little bit harder, like I said, because you had to start the healing before putting down the skills of Yae Miko. So it was either Bennett's burst, but then you're going to be losing time with Benny on Gaming, or the way that I figured it out, using Chevy's skill to then clear the Bond of Life that is going on to Yae Miko. Now, finally, another character that can make use of this is going to be somebody like Charlotte, who is a healer and can make use of the attack from this weapon because Charlotte's healing is based on attack. This is going to be one of her best free-to-play weapons because it's going to give her so much attack from the main stat. It's going to increase her healing, and then, of course, she can just use the elemental damage if she gets a melt coming off of like Gaming or somebody like that in this team. Partnering her with Farina is going to be very good because she does a team-wide healing, which is going to sack a ton of fanfare points immediately from Charlotte to Farina. And then, of course, we have Sitlali in there because Sitlali makes the enemies weaker once the melt reaction is caused and applies a ton of cryo. So you can do a lot of fun stuff. Now, in this particular team, if you were going to be running Charlotte in this team with if you were going to be running Charlotte with this particular weapon to get as much attack on her as you can, then I would probably be running an ER Sands instead of an attack Sands, so that way you can have her burst readily available. You got to make sure that you keep the balance between amount healed and the ability to do her burst to heal. So then I would look at like an ER Sands if you're going to be running this weapon because you're going to get attack. Now, finally, we are going to quickly run through all of the catalyst users and talk about whether or not this weapon is going to be good on them. Now, first we have Lisa. Now, Lisa, you're most likely going to be using to either shred defense off of the enemy or using her kind of like in a quicken team. So you're most likely going to be wanting ER on her or EM. Now, there are some instances that she can use it though, so do keep that in mind. Next, we're going to have Barbara. Barbara's healing scales off of her HP, so you're really not going to be able to use this weapon on Barbara. Ningi, we already talked about. Sucrose, you're going to build full EM to share her EM with your other teammates, and Vivi, so no, you're not going to use it on her. Mona definitely can, as long as you have enough ER to kind of use her burst, then you can put this on her to allow her to do a little bit more damage. Klee, you absolutely can. This is one of Klee's best free-to-play weapons as long as you run her with a healer, because she's going to be able to use that attack and that elemental damage bonus. And Yanfei is essentially the 4-star version of Klee, so she can also use it. Next is going to be Coco. I cannot think of a single instance in which you would use this weapon on Coco because you're going to be able to take her HP or EM. Yae Miko we talked about. Hazo, you definitely can. I believe this is one of his best free-to-play options as well, depending on if you're wanting him to do swirl damage or animo damage. Next, we're going to have Nahida, who you're going to be once again building full EM or EM Dendro crit rate crit damage. So you're not ever really going to build attack on Nahida. Wanderer, this is one of his best free-to-play options as long as you're running him with a healer to clear the Bond of Life. This is going to be a very good weapon for him. Again, if you're wanting him to do animo damage, not swirl. Baiju, not really. You're going to be building him HP to heal more. Nuvalet, his damage scales off of HP. You're not going to be using it. Risley, absolutely. This is one of his best free-to-play options because he self-heals, meaning he can clear his own Bond of Life from this weapon, giving him an elemental damage bonus. We already talked about Charlotte. Cloud Retainer, Xinyun, you definitely can. Her healing is based off of her attack, so this weapon can be used for her, and she can heal herself through her burst, team-wide healing, to get her own damage bonus. There are better options, but you can use it on her. Mualani, no, because she scales with HP. Sitlali, no, because her shield scales with EM, and you're going to be running her in a team where you want to run her EM anyway. Lanyan, yes, because her shield scales with attack, you can. However, Thrilling Tales might be a better option strictly for the buff. And last, we have Mizuki, who not really, you're going to be building her as a full on-field anima driver, which means you're going to be building her full EM, not attack. Now, I've been wanting to I used to make a lot of videos talking about specifically the weapons or artifact sets, and I kind of want to start making those again. So if you like this video, make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Let me know in the comments if you liked it and if I should make more. Kooky has green hair, I have pink hair, and I'll see you in the next one.